Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejust II reference 116334 41 millimeters. This is steel and 18 karat white gold in the bimetallic combination that Rolex calls white Rolesor. From 2009 to the present, the Datejust II has served as the larger, bolder, more contemporary looking option within the larger Datejust model line. It proved that Rolex doesn't view style in terms of diktat or rigid traditions. Rather, as part of its deference to tradition, Rolex prefers to add options, maintaining the original 36mm Datejust and adding the 41mm Datejust II as an option for those with larger wrists or those who just prefer a greater wrist presence in a modern sports style watch. Now let me put it on the wrist and you can get a sense of how the watch looks on my 6 1/3 inch, 16 centimeter wrist. Now that's circumference right there. If you have one of those monster 8-inch wrists that is just going to overwhelm a 36mm traditional Datejust, if you really can't wear that watch with a straight face, try this watch. 41mm, it's really barrel-chested and broad-shouldered for a 41, plays far larger. I have to say that I just tested a Breitling Chronomat Blackbird that was 40mm, but the visual, and that red is 40mm, this reads as a 42 or a 43, and because of the end links that conform to the case, because of the broad flared lugs at the edge, the watch reads all of a piece with its bracelet, which greatly adds to the impression of a visual mass. It's not a heavy watch, it's got good substantial weight to it, but visually it just looks so much bigger and has so much more impact than that bare 41mm diameter case descriptor would imply. On my wrist it sits relatively flat. It's got a nice sloped 18 karat white gold bezel, and the nice thing about that is that it'll help a sleeve up and over the watch if you do want to wear it with long sleeves. You're good to go for dress occasions and formal attire, and of course any kind of casual long sleeve is going to go right up and over. Now the watch does have a beautiful slate gray dial and white metal combination, and as I always like to say, that is the most versatile you can get. But I want to really emphasize the bezel and the dial on this one, because they're both standouts. First of all, when you see fluted bezels on a Rolex, you know that you're looking at precious metal. Bare minimum, the bezel itself will be precious metal if it's fluted. On full gold watches, you may also see it, but the bottom line is that the fluted bezel is kind of a little nod and a wink between Rolex enthusiasts. It's the kind of thing that'll only start a conversation and draw inquiries from those who really know and appreciate the watches. So in my opinion, it's the best type of wrist-borne conversation starter. Not something that's extrovert and flamboyant in a Kardashian sense. It's something that is going to draw the right kind of compliments and spark interesting conversation with like-minded enthusiasts. Now the bezel is the best supporting actor, but the dial itself is the main event. Slate gray with Roman numerals. I'm gonna just call out the contrast at play here, because if the iPhone doesn't do justice to this timepiece, I really have to advise you to go to our website, Watch You Want, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of looking at the high-resolution images we have of this watch, because those black Roman numerals with that vivid, almost surreal silver outline to each one on the slate dial, they just jump out at you. And the bottom line is that with the applied white gold Rolex 5-point coronet at 12 o'clock and the applied loomed index at 9 o'clock, this isn't a busy dial, it's just an exquisite dial. So many vivid elements. It's such a memorable and unique piece that even after we've seen about 7 model years of Datejust II production, I've still only experienced a handful of these in person, and every time I do, the effect to me is stunning. Now, I respect Rolex. I'm not necessarily in love with the brand, and I'll be honest there, but this watch fires up the passions. This is a piece that you can't help but love if you love traditional mechanical timepieces, and that dial in combination with that bezel is a big part of the equation. Now the bracelet is incredibly substantial, and it highlights some of the ways Rolex breaks up the mass of the watch by adding contrast. Contrast with the tapering links, contrast with the polished center links, the polished shoulders, and then the upper outer links brushed. That varied treatment breaks up again that mass of white metal and allows each piece to feature and play its role individually. Again, there's differentiation here in spite of the fact that it is all white metal. Likewise, the fluting of the bezel breaks up that expanse of gold and steel. Moving down toward the clasp is Rolex's latest milled out, all of a piece, very solid. You close it, closes with a snick. You open it up. Likewise, it also features Rolex's tool-free 5mm Easy Link adjustment, so you can actually expand or contract the bracelet based on whether or not the weather's hot or cold. If you're engaged in physical activity, you have that little degree of micro adjustment without any need to resort to a jeweler. Very convenient and outstanding feature. I really like it. I think it adds a lot of value. Now, the bottom line is that this was also the debut platform, horologically speaking, for the Rolex 3136 movement, which was the launch platform itself for Rolex's Paraflex shock absorbers. So there's a lot of in-house Rolex technology at play here. You have the Paraflex shock absorbers, you have the Parachrome Blue anti-magnetic hairspring, also highly shock resistant. These features help to improve the watch's ability to keep time in spite of the slings and arrows of daily life, the shocks, the vibrations, all of the disruptions that can offset the timing accuracy of a watch. Also a COSC certified chronometer. Rolex is a bit exceptional in Switzerland in that they certify the movement as a chronometer, and then when they put it back in the watch, they make sure it is still keeping chronometer timing standards. And that's more difficult and less common than you might think in Swiss horology, even at the luxury end of the scale. The watch features a free-sprung escapement and a full dual-anchored balance bridge. Anchoring the balance bridge on both sides and fixing the regulator means that, again, shock is less likely to change the rate of the watch, and your watch will be that much more accurate over time, giving Rolex at least a little bit more substantive claim to that famous graphic on the dial, superlative chronometer. I would say it's legit in this case. Rolex earns that. They may give themselves the nickname superlative chronometer, but I think they work for it. It also features bi-directional winding, which is highly refined. That's the best way I describe Rolex winding. Because the winding rotor is loaded in both directions, actually performing mechanical work in both directions, it's not going to freewheel wildly in either direction like some unidirectional winders will. That can create a little bit of a distinctive wobble on the wrist that some people find to be a little bit off-putting, unrefined. Not so with a Rolex. Oyster Perpetual means automatic, but most importantly, refined bi-directional winding with Teflon reversing wheels, just like butter on the wrist, even while it's energizing itself. And it does have a 50-hour power reserve, so that's solidly more than the industry average of about 42. This Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejust II 116334 presents in outstanding condition, a combination of 18-karat white gold on the bezel and Rolex 904L superior stainless steel throughout. This is a fantastic modern Datejust. It plays modern, it looks modern, it feels modern. It has tremendous presence, and in spite of its bold size and proportions, nevertheless the combination of a dark dial and a white metal makes it tastefully understated. It doesn't wear its gold on its sleeve, even if you do. The bottom line is, this is one for the true Rolex enthusiast who wants a bigger watch. Understated, substantial, contemporary, with just enough deference to tradition and all of the mechanical substance inside that you expect of Rolex. If all that sounds good to you, this Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejust II just may be the watch you want.